first time I tried it, I loved stand-up paddleboarding. It's a relaxing way to explore the shoreline. But is it worth making room for one on your cruising boat? Well, maybe, if it's an inflatable. Hi there, I'm Carolyn Sherlock, and on this episode of the Boat Alley podcast, I'll share my impressions of having a tower inflatable stand-up paddleboard. Hopefully, it'll help you decide if one is in your future. Now, this episode of the Boat Galley podcast is sponsored by Marmara Imports. Their hand-loomed, fair trade, organic cotton Turkish towels are highly absorbent, dry quickly, fold flat, and are soft and luxurious, perfect for life aboard. Use coupon code PODCAST10 for 10% off any order of $40 or more. MarmaraImports.com. More than a towel. Visit their website or see their booth at the Annapolis Sailboat Show this October. Okay, let's talk about paddleboarding. I love all water activities, and I bought a tower stand-up paddleboard back in, 2013. I posted a number of pictures throughout the years, and I've always gotten a lot of questions about it. Why a paddleboard? Why an inflatable? Can old folks really do it? Why did I like the tower ones? And more. So let's talk a little bit about this. Okay, I first tried paddleboarding when we went to Hawaii, and I was absolutely hooked. I love how you can quietly explore the shoreline areas, and I'll be honest, I love the occasional chance to sort of surf down a wave. Now, my big wave record height is less than a foot, so we're not talking about anything really scary here. But the big things here are it's great exercise that doesn't feel like exercise. Now, I've done some kayaking in the past, and I get incredibly uncomfortable in a kayak. My back and legs just don't like sitting like that. I have to admit, I'm extremely inflexible. Lots of people love kayaking. But if you aren't really comfortable kayaking, paddleboarding can be a much more comfortable thing for you. And while you think of it as probably working your shoulders and your arms, it also works your core, your legs, your feet, and your ankles. It's also phenomenal balance training. And that's something that's easy to lose with each passing year and is really necessary anywhere, but particularly living on the boat. Even with being on the boat all the time, in and out of the dinghy and so forth, Dave and I normally seek out things like low walls, logs to walk on, and so forth. This is another good way of working on your balance without really even thinking about the fact that you're working on your balance. It just seems like play. Now, one question I've been asked a lot is, aren't paddleboards for youngsters? Well, obviously, I don't think so, any more than snorkeling and diving are for the younger crowd. If you're comfortable in the water, in case you fall off, you'll do fine. Now, I find it much easier to get back on the board from the water than to get even into a dinghy when snorkeling. But if you have serious questions about the physical side, either rent or borrow a board before buying one. Even if it's not the same model, you'll quickly discover if you like it and how it works for you. The big thing was, I wanted to get a paddleboard back in 2013, but we really questioned whether we could store one and how we could take it with us on trips and things like that. Boards are pretty big. They're generally 10 to 14 feet long. And so it was sort of one of those, well, maybe someday. But that fall, as we walked into the Annapolis Boat Show, the answer literally stared me in the face, an inflatable board. And admittedly, they've gotten much more popular since then, the inflatables, so you may already have heard about inflatables. As we walked around the show, I kept discovering that there were more and more companies doing them. And hands down, our favorites in looking at them all were the tower boards. The big difference that we saw was that they were just plain and simply a lot firmer, that they would take a higher PSI on the air pressure than the others. They had about double the weight limits. And their pricing at that time was a lot less than the other boards. Nowadays, they're just about in line. Took me a while before I really decided to pull the trigger on it, and it was actually when we were in Florida before we bought this boat, in fact, and I found somebody who was willing to let me borrow their tower board and took it out for a spin, and when I brought it back, he said, well, I'm just about to move up to Atlanta. I'm not really going to have a use for it. Do you want to buy it? Well, sure. That's when I went ahead and grabbed it. Since then, we have really enjoyed it. Now, blowing one up will give you an excellent cardio workout. If you don't want so much of a workout, or if you want to be able to roll it up and unroll it and use it a little bit faster all the time, I ended up getting a 12-volt compressor right from Tower. They work really well and don't use an awful lot of power. And it's so much easier. It makes me use it a lot more often. The longer the board you have, the faster it will go. And that's one difference. I ended up with a shorter board, the 9-foot board, and it's a little bit tippier, but not bad. The other thing to know is that the paddles, I got one that breaks down into 3 pieces. After using it each time, be sure to rinse it out and even possibly spray something like Deep Creep into it, because if you do not, the salt water will get in there and it will totally freeze up and you will not be able to get the paddle apart when you want to. The other big thing to know about it is that any inflatable paddleboard that I have seen is made from PVC, not Hypalon. And you need to protect PVC from sun when it's not in use. I ended up making I bought a cover that was already made and then sort of, I guess I'll say, adjusted it so that it was easy for me to put on and off and would stay on the board when I just had it on the side deck. And then when we went underway, I deflated the board and put it down into our sail locker. Before rolling and storing it, be sure that you have dried the board thoroughly so that the deck pad and so forth don't get mildew. The Tower boards, you can buy them on Amazon. Periodically they come and go there, but you can also get them on the Tower website. I've put links to them all in the show notes. Seriously, if you're at all like me and like water sports, like playing with stuff, I think you'll love a board, and you'll love it twice as much if you get the 12-volt inflatable. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Boat Galley Podcast, finding out something new, something fun for your cruising stuff. If you do, be sure to subscribe to us and also tell your friends about us. Thank you.